Geri, can you hear us okay, or is the fan bothering y'all?
I can hear you good. Let me spotlight you.
Okay.
Little choppy, but there's a cute little rabbit there.
What about me?
Say you didn't comment on how cute Jason looks tonight in his fun apron.
Exactly.
All right, y'all, we are back with Mr. Jason Platt. He is going to help us with a little bit of showmanship and health information tonight. As we get started, please feel free to write any questions you have in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask your question as we go along. All right.
Hello, everybody. Okay, we're going to use the mini Rex because this is about as close to a meat pen bunny size as I have here in the barn. So, showmanship. Every judge will ask a different set of questions, but every judge wants to see you handle your rabbit, how you pose it, how you carry it to the table to present your rabbit to the judge. They all watch what you're doing, how you're carrying it. You need to know the basic types of the rabbits, the way a judge describes what he feels when he runs his hands over the rabbit's body. You need to be able to know what all that is. I'll show you how to properly handle the rabbit. For the youngsters that are watching, I will show you a trick how to help them be still while you have them turned upside down, and it will help you. So anyway, this is Gracie. Gracie is a mini Rex senior doe. So one question that you might get asked, say this Gracie is a New Zealand. What variety is Gracie? She is a broken black. And the broken means all the white patches, it's a broken pattern. Okay? So anytime you see a rabbit with black and white, blue and white, red and white, with white off of a dark color, that's called a broken. Okay, so those of y'all that raise New Zealands, you're going to need to know that. Because if you use a New Zealand for your showmanship, you'll get asked that question. How many varieties and what are they? So we'll go over that here in a little bit. So first step in showmanship, you're going to carry your rabbit to the judge's table like this dirty mess I have here. This is not the right way to carry your rabbit. Okay? She can jump out of your arms, fall to the ground, hurt herself, break a leg, chip a tooth, and liable to scratch you a lot. So when you carry one, you want to carry it in your arm. In the pit of your arm, put her head, almost covering her eyes. Then you want to put your arm behind her back end and always have your hand on top. This way you have control. Okay? So make believe I'm walking up here. When you set her down, you're going to set your rabbit down just like this. Immediately put your rabbit into a pose. Now, we went over posing last time. I'll do it again. Front feet underneath the jawbone, like the way hers are. You see the tip of her foot right here by her jaw. Then you just kind of scoot her back end up until their body stops moving. She's posed. Always cover their eyes. You don't want to mash their head down like this, but you just want to kind of cover their eyes like me putting my chin in my chest. That's the way you want that rabbit to hold its head. Always get it into a pose. Run your hand over its body. Then the judge will start asking you some questions. Now, first thing usually a judge will ask is, name me some disqualifications and check your rabbits for disqualifications. While you have your rabbit posed, First thing you always need to look for is in their ears. Look down in the bottom of their ear and make sure you don't see scabs. Scabs looks like is what you call ear mites. It turns into a little red scab. That's a disqualification. Take a step back and look into your rabbit's eyes. Make sure you do not see cloudiness or like a little star right in the middle of that pupil, okay? If you see cloudiness or a star, they're blind. So general appearance, you also can kind of look over their body, see if you see anything that's really out of whack. As far as you can't really check much on disqualifications, you can check for nasal discharge, which is a bad runny nose, but you do that mainly when you turn them over. So the correct way to turn them over, the way I like to do it, get their ears between their fingers like I showed you before, and get a good grip on them and use both hands and squeeze those ears, not really squeezing that skin on top of their neck, and turn them over. Let their body lay on the table. Now that you can see everything else in front of you, now's when you want to start checking these rabbits out. Now, the trick that I told you I would tell you, make sure if you'll tilt that rabbit's head back with your thumb, you can feel her body just get limp. She's pretty limp right now. She's pretty gentle. So anyway, oh, quit it. So anyway, you've got your rabbit back up here, and you're going to check for disqualifications. First thing you look for, discharge in the nostrils. You want to make sure the inside their nostrils are dry. That way they don't have, that tells you if they are, excuse me, they do not have respiratory issues. Another way to tell on the inside of their front paws, if they've got respiratory problems, that fur in between their front feet is going to be kind of matted up. It'll be kind of sticky from wiping their nose. All right, now you've checked their nose, then you're going to check for teeth. Always come in from the side and just pull their cheeks down. It'll show you top teeth always overlap the bottom teeth. If they meet in the middle, it's a disqualification. If the bottom teeth come in front of the top teeth, like a bad underbite, it is a disqualification. Now, always want to check in their throat area for an abscess. A lot of times these rabbits, if you've got an old rusty feeder that they're eating out of, it'll rub and rub and rub and it'll get infected. Then you've got a little pus pocket in there and there'll be an abscess. So always check for abscesses there. Always run your thumb down between their chest, down through their belly and their abdomen, all the way to their genitals to make sure there's no abscesses there. Then you want to go to their feet. You want to stick your thumb in the bottom of their paw and you can see how those nails are sticking out. And you want to count every nail with your thumb. You count 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So there's 5 toenails on the front foot, 4 on the back foot, and literally count them. Let the judge see that you're counting them. You don't have to say it aloud, but you run your thumb across them like this, or literally just pull and touch them and kind of squeeze each toe. Do the same thing. Do both front feet first, then go to the back feet. You kind of want to pull their legs to make sure their legs are straight. That way there's not had maybe a broken leg and rehealed and it rehealed crooked. If it does, that leg will stick out like this to the side. Legs should all be straight. Back legs, same way. Just kind of pull them a little bit. You want to do it very gently just to make sure. Then you want to check their tail. What you're looking for in a tail is a broken tail. So you just grab the top of the tail with this finger, put your thumb on the bottom of it, and just kind of pull that tail straight. If you feel any little bump, that's a broken tail sometime in their life. That's a disqualification. Now, when checking the genitals of these rabbits, you've got to know whether you have a buck or a doe. Every judge will ask you to show him. So the best way to do it is kick one leg up, have her butt up against you. Put your thumb on the bottom of the tail, and then just move your forefinger up at the top of the genital and just kind of press forward, and it will show you. If you have something that looks like the top of an ink pen tube, that's a buck. So, all right, so now you've checked for disqualifications. Hernias, tails, crooked legs, toenails, you've checked everything. Turning them back over, use the same motion you did to turn them over. Both hands, do it all in one motion. Get her set back up. Run your hand over to let her know that she's safe, and you're done. So you've shown a judge how to handle your rabbits. A lot of the youngsters have trouble with this. They get about right here and the rabbits start flipping and jumping. Work with your rabbit. Find your rabbit that you're going to use, okay, for showmanship, and work with him. Get him gentle. If you can get that rabbit gentle, you're going to do very well. Some of the questions that any judge will ask you, we talked about New Zealand's a while ago. If this was a broken New Zealand, judge may ask you, name me all of the varieties of New Zealand's. Varieties are the different colors. There's blacks, whites, broken reds, broken blacks, and broken blues. So you've got all the broken varieties showed together. So when you're describing the colors and the varieties, just say blacks, whites, reds, and blues. And that will cover all bases. And of course, the brokens. Californians. See if somebody will answer this question for me. Is there other varieties of Californians?
Clay says no.
That's correct. In Californians, it is black and whites. Sometimes, and it does happen in some people's herds, their ears will be blue instead of black, or brown, which are called chocolates. They are not recognized by ARBA, so they are not a legal variety. So you're correct, Clay. The only variety is a black and white. Okay? If you have, so say we have a Californian here. Let me get another rabbit and I can show you better. We'll use this little old baby. Little old thing. Okay. Californians. The dark coloring, here's a good example. See that spot? Is that a disqualification? It's not part of the mask. It's not part of his mask. So is that actually a disqualification? Yes, it is. It shouldn't be, but it is. You have the ear color, feet color, nose markings, and of course the dark tail. But that's not a nose marking. That is a distinctive spot. So that actually is a disqualification. Now he's a breeder buck. He probably will never throw that spot in his babies. So I don't count it against him as far as him still being here. But this marbling in the ear, that's not a disqualification. That's just Californians. Some do it. Some will have coal black ears. Some will have a little lighter gray colored ear like this guy does. Plus, it's not really cold yet. The colder it gets, the darker Californians' colors will get. So if your judge asks you, what is the exact name of the dark colors on a Californian? It's called point color. Hardly ever will a judge ask you how many points go on judging for point color. But they will ask. Now, a Californian, if you're using a grown breeder like this one for your showmanship, one thing to remember, you have to know what smut is. Smut is a dark, it's a foreign coloring. And I'll show you where it is on this big guy. So usually you find smut right in the middle of their belly, right in here. It'll be like a gray stripe that runs sideways. Californians have a Himalayan gene in them, and they get that from laying on cold wire or wire that's wet, either from rain or heavy dews in the morning, but the wire gets too cold. You'll find that smut usually across their belly. Now, if you find it further than his elbow is right here where my little finger is. If you find that dark color past that elbow, it's actually called smut, and that's a disqualification. Same thing on the back hock. Oh, quit, big man. Same thing on the back hock. If it goes past a half an inch past the bottom of his big old foot, if it goes about where a finger length where my finger is up his leg, that's a disqualification. A lot of places that smut will happen on a grown Californian is back here on the very back end of their butt, around their skirt, where all that meat usually sits. All that is supposed to be sitting on the wire. So you'll always see smut across here, across their back end if they've been laying on cold wire. Now, if you use, this is an older buck. If you use an older doe, and she's got the great big, easy, Bubba. If she's got the great big dewlap across here, that can be gray and look like smut, but that is not a disqualification. And the reason it's not, if this animal was to go to a processor and there was a market for these furs, right here under their jaw is not a usable portion of the pelt. On their belly, across their back end back here, that's all a usable portion of the pelt. So a Californian can have smut on the dewlap underneath them, which would be like with me, a beard. They can have it there, but nowhere else. If they have it little pieces on the side or across their butt, that's smut, and that's a disqualification. New Zealand whites do not get smut, even though they're both white rabbits. But New Zealand whites do not have the Himalayan gene in them to make point-colored big rabbits. So always know what smut is. Another question that I always ask when I'm judging, you need to know what kind of feed that you feed. Know what brand of feed you feed, what the protein is, You don't need to know where you get it, but you just need to know what brand it is. Say you feed Purina Complete, which is a 16% protein, okay? Or if you feed like me, I feed Peacher's Feed out of Louisiana. I feed the 50/50 Elite. That's 16.5% protein. So you need to know what your proteins are and the brand name of your feed. Now, I also ask questions like, so I've got a Californian in front of me. Name me 4 other commercial breeds that are used in meat rabbits for the stock shows. Okay, of course, Californians, this should be your first answer. You've got your holding one. New Zealand's, any variety. Champagnes. Champagnes are kind of a real dark gray, black feet, gray ears. They've got some black around their nose, but most of their bodies are real dark gray. A Palomino. There are golden Palominos and lynx Palominos. So you'll need to know both varieties of Palominos in case he asks you. Satins are also another commercial breed. Most satins are not used in meat pens, mainly because they just don't grow fast enough. A 70-day-old bunny, which is what ARBA says you're supposed to ever be raising, they'll only get to 3.5 to 4 pounds. They just grow too slow. Cream d'Argents, you can show them, but they'll never win. But use that breed as part of your answers because they are a commercial rabbit. Okay, so name 4 or 5 of those breeds. All of those breeds and all the answers, and I tried to find it a minute ago. I was going to show you the ARBA Standard of Perfection. That's a book that you can buy on the ARBA website, which is arba.net, and it's called Standard of Perfection. Every answer to every breed that is recognized by ARBA is in this book. It's only $18. It's a very, very good book. I ask other questions like, what is a baby rabbit called? It's called a kit. It's K-I-T. It is a kit. What does ARBA stand for? American Rabbit Breeders Association. I've had some youngsters tell me American Red Beef Association. I mean, it's some crazy answers. So know that it's American Rabbit Breeders Association. Okay. Same thing on a big rabbit. Always check their ears first, eyes, turn them over, and go to checking through your disqualifications. That is basically showmanship. When you walk away, get hold of your rabbit, pull him close to you, and carry him back. And the judge is still scoring you as you carry that rabbit away. Is there any questions on any of that?
Okay, Clay, you had a question about flipping rabbits. I didn't quite see it. Do you want to ask it again? Geri, can you see his question in the chat box?
Yes. He asked, how do you flip them when you have small hands?
Okay, let me get the small rabbit. Okay. Small hands, and you can take your hands, and some youngsters that are small, you can grab this skin on top of the shoulders. That's called the scruff. Okay. You want to still put their ears between these 2 fingers. Take your 3 fingers that are left and grab that scruff, and that way you have control of him. Once you get him upside down, kind of tilt his head back a little. You don't have to keep that pressure on him. As long as you've got hold of his ears, you should be able to take control. Now, a lot of youngsters will do it like this. They'll kind of make a cone and kind of pull his ears and do it like this. I don't have control of this rabbit that well like that, okay? Because I'm more or less holding the top of his ears up here instead of down close to the base and behind his head, okay? If you've got bigger hands, you can grip their head like this. Don't squeeze it off, but just keep a good control, and you can control them like this, okay? I don't have a strong grip on him, this little one right now. As you can see, I'm moving my fingers all around, and this little doe hadn't been moved very much. Furball. So anyway, but you got to control their head once you get them turned over. That's the trick. If you'll work with them and practice this, you'll be able to control a rabbit to where you can describe what you're telling the judge. Now, I told you earlier, you need to be able to describe to a judge what you're feeling. Some may ask you, now that you've got your rabbit posed and you've checked him for disqualifications, describe your rabbit to me. Well, of course, you have his head, his ears, his shoulders, his midsection, which is midsection is behind the back rib and the front of that loin, which is right here. Then you describe the loin. When the back of the loin, that back leg runs in a circle like this, a half circle. That is the loin hindquarter junction. So that's right over the edge of their hip before it breaks off the edge and goes to their back end. Their back end is not called back end. It's called hindquarter. This is the hindquarter of the body. So you have 1 quarter, 2 quarters, 3 quarters, 4 quarters. Hindquarter. You want a full round hindquarter, which means the meat that goes from this back leg all around the back side of their rear end, all the way to the other back leg. So if you're describing your rabbit, remember it's shoulder, midsection at the rib, loin, and then hindquarter. If a judge asks you how to check their fur, now this is a mini Rex. Mini Rex fur is totally different than a cow or a New Zealand or a commercial animal. Mini Rex fur, you check their fur back to front. If you have a Californian or a New Zealand, champagne or satin, you do it all to the back, and you do it one time like that because you want, on a Cal or New Zealand, you want fly back fur. When you do this, it should flutter back into position the way you've been working it. If you remember in the first session we did, I showed you how to work fur. Get a little spray water, a little water on your hands, do it back and forth like this 3-4 times, and then do it all to the back. The natural oil on your hands will train that fur to lay down, and that's what you want. Any questions? Any more questions?
None in the chat, but y'all are welcome to unmute yourself and ask away.
I saw Lydia on. Lydia, what questions do you have? You've been quiet.
I don't really have any.
You don't have rabbit questions tonight? You usually have a million questions.
I do have one.
What's that?
I have a Holland lop. Is it? I have a broken type of point. Is it different than others?
Okay, so you have a Holland lop, and then what was your question?
If it doesn't look like the variety it's supposed to, will that disqualify you?
So she has a Holland Lop. If it doesn't look like a normal variety, does that disqualify it?
You either have brokens or solids.
Brokens.
She says brokens.
Okay, then if you have a broken, it's a normal variety. Thing about Hollands, and you pose them different. I don't know if I can get this little girl to do this, but she's never done it before. But Hollands, you kind of pose them kind of standing on their front end, where I'm trying to do it where y'all can see. Her head will be about that high, and then you have her posed kind of like this. But Hollands, like I say, Hollands have, if you've seen that bump on their head, that's called a crown. And Hollands are, of course, lops. But they have to have a very good, bold, real big crown up on top of their head. It's kind of like a big bump, like on a beluga whale, is what it's like. But yeah, if you've got a broken and she is 10% white and the rest a dark color, as long as she has 10% white, she's a broken. You just have to have 10% of the white color to be a recognized broken variety.
So I don't know what's going on with my rabbit. Its color is changing. It used to be brown and now it's red.
So she said the color is changing. It used to be brown and now it's turning a red color.
The red is probably sun bleach and it's a different time of year. They'll change colors if they get a lot of sun. And when the weather starts to change, they'll start molting and that fur will start dying. So it loses its natural color. So I imagine her Holland is getting ready to start a molt and all that funny colored fur will kind of start falling out.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Lydia. And then I saw Clay say he gets his feed from Jason. So now do you know what brand and percent protein your feed is, Clay?
Yes.
What is it?
Tell him I don't know right now.
I don't know right now.
He doesn't know right now. He doesn't have any rabbits.
You don't have your feed yet, so you're not supposed to know. I get that.
Okay. What other questions do y'all have?
Hey, Mellanie, is Jason going to be there on December 5th or no?
No, I'm going to be at an ARBA show in Kline.
Okay.
He'll be at validation in February.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
I have one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
So like in February and then December, are we supposed to bring our rabbits?
So are you planning on showing in the Bastrop show, Lydia?
Yes.
Okay. So in December for the Bastrop Area Livestock Show, and this is why it's important to read y'all's rules for any show that you're attending, okay? The Bastrop show rules want you to postmark your entries by December 5th. So you don't have to turn in any money or anything like that. You just have to postmark your entry saying, I plan to have rabbits to validate in February for the show in March, okay? The validation process is the actual date where we will bring the rabbits to a designated location. So for the Bastrop show, it's usually the Bastrop show barn. And then we will give them a tattoo in their ear that validates them or says that you have owned them since this date that we gave that tattoo. Okay. So the February 4th date, I believe.
I think that's right.
I think it's right. So the February 4th date that's listed in the rule book, will be the day that you would physically bring your rabbits up there, and then they would get their tattoo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Y'all have any other questions?
Clay's good.
Thank you for letting me share some of this info with you again.
All right. Thanks for joining us, y'all. And thank you, Mr. Jason. We appreciate your time.
You bet.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Y'all have a great evening. If y'all have any other questions, just feel free to email me or Miss Geri, and we will get with Mr. Jason and get y'all the answers to those questions that come up.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey.
Thanks. Yeah. Okay. Let me stop
I'm
the
not gonna set
recording.
this on there.
Okay.
You'll have it covered in fur.